Good morning. Thanks for investing your most valuable asset, your most precious asset, your time with us this morning. My name is Oscar Trimboli, and I'm obsessed with helping marketing professionals become the leaders that they deserve to be. As a judge and a coach with the Marketing Academy in Australia, I've been working with marketing leaders and brand leaders from organisations like Apple and Google, Vodafone, Reebok, SAP, 20th Century Fox, Macquarie University, and agencies like M&C Saatchi, Y&R Brands and Ogilvy. In that work, I hear some common frustration from marketing leaders. And the common frustrations I hear that they're struggling. They're struggling personally. They're struggling to inspire and lead their own brands, and as a result, lead their own organisations. They feel sometimes that they're at a crossroads. They don't know where to make the next move. They're quite frustrated. The way they think about their customers, their markets, and their competitors maybe isn't as relevant as it has been in the past. So, what will you learn from today's webinar? You'll learn great marketers are focused on three things deliberately. They create more and they react less. They have a clear understanding of their personal brand before they understand the organisation's brand. And they play to their strengths, the strengths of their team and the strengths of the organisation. So today, towards the end of this webinar, we'll be providing you with a simple 30-minute online assessment to help you understand if you actually are playing to your strengths, if you are playing to the strengths of the brand you represent, are you playing to the strengths of your team and the organisation that you represent? Thanks again for spending time with us this morning. What I wanted to do was learn a little bit about you and hear from you first. So what we want to do is use the question window in your GoToMeeting application. And what I've done here is provided you with a screenshot of two options that may appear on your screen right now. The first option at the top, you may only see a small red and white arrow, the top screen. If that's the case, just click the white arrow and then your screen will appear like the one below. There, you'll have an option to click on questions. So what I'd love to hear from you today is, where are you based? Where are you listening to this webinar from this morning? What city are you in? And maybe what's the weather like in the city that you're in this morning so far? So just pop down and add your question into the question window and just simply say, what city are you in? What's the weather like there? So I'm based in Sydney. The weather's glorious today. The sun is shining and the skies are very, very blue. So I can see straight away there's someone online from Brisbane. Thank you. Someone from Newcastle. Okay, that's not somewhere I was expecting someone to be, but we're all fairly mobile this day. Someone from Melbourne and a couple of people from Sydney. So thank you everybody for sharing that information about you. So let's get a better sense now of which industries that you're based in. What kind of industries are you in right now? So let me get a sense from you. I'd really appreciate you guys being interactive this morning. And I know some of you may not have had your first cup of coffee. And for those of you who've had your first cup of coffee, it may only be kicking in. So in the question panel, just pop in there what industry that you represent. Some people already keying in there. Fast moving consumer goods, thank you. Technology, nice, an industry I'm pretty familiar with. Professional services, great. Telecommunications, great, we're using some of your products right now to get this webinar running. Fashion, okay, wasn't expecting somebody from the fashion industry, but that's great. I'm from a marketing agency, great. I'm based in broadcast media, okay, well I feel like a bit of broadcast media myself right now. And I'm actually in financial services. Okay, thank you. So quite a broad range of people on the call today, which is terrific. Thanks very much. And I really appreciate the interactive start to the morning. You know, one of the things I've understood from the marketers I work with, are really good ones. They're outstanding storytellers. They create great dialogue between themselves and their audience. And they do that because as a result of creating a dialogue, they can both really learn well from each other. Finally, I'd ask you to just put a simple question in there and answer. And this question I won't kind of read back. It'll be personal between you and me. What I'd like to understand is, what's your biggest challenge as a marketing professional right now? What's your biggest challenge as a marketing professional right now? So pop over to the window in your GoToWebinar application, and let's pop in there what your biggest challenge is as a marketer. And while we're doing that, don't worry, I'm not going to broadcast them back or say them out aloud. The reason I'm doing that is I want to tailor my content according to where the group is at right now in terms of challenges, and make sure that I emphasize where everybody's at in any one particular time. So one of the things I want to do is talk to some deeper common themes when I talk to marketing leaders. And while you put in your common challenges, some of the things I hear in common back is there's a lot of increasing pressure from marketing leaders to do more with less. Less people, less money, less resources, and less time. They're getting less of the organization's time back. Their brands are under threat from overseas organizations, newer, smaller, more nimble, more agile, and more digital brands. They have to spend more time justifying every dollar they spend. They're asked to create reports and provide information in different ways. So there's more pressure on accountability, particularly to show the impact of the marketing return on investment. Sales are asking for price cuts to help drive sales volumes, and finance organizations are looking to reduce costs, all while boards and leaders are asking marketing leaders to create longer, more sustainable and healthier brands with less money at lower margins. And finally, creating powerful teams, not only inside the organization, but also outside the organization, and working with agencies that you may be interacting with, and organizations that provide specialist and freelance resources to your organization. So when I speak to them one-on-one, some of the other struggles they talk about is time management, maintaining a disciplined approach to understanding the needs of their stakeholders while balancing off their strategic and tactical tasks that need to get completed. Feeling confident enough to speak the language of finance, operations, sales, speak to the CEO, the owner, the board of directors, the managing director, to ensure that marketing is leading the discussion rather than reacting just to another question. They want to lead more, they want to react less. They want to be seen as proactive at least 50% of the time, whereas today they feel they can only explain maybe 3 hours in their week that's focused on proactive time for them and their brands. When I'm having a beer with them in a pub, a common phrase they come back with is, I feel like I'm carrying the weight of the brand on my own shoulders. I feel alone. It's a lonely place. I have very little internal and very little external support to take the brand where it deserves to be. They worry about whether their skills are relevant, not only today, but in the future. And they want to build a world-class marketing organization. They want to build an organization that's a great team that can take the brand where it deserves to be in the future. So, finally and most tellingly, I find it ironic, it's probably a paradox. Beginning with great brand leaders, the thing they spend the least amount of time on is building their own brands. They struggle to build personal brands. And those who do struggle to build personal brands get quite frustrated by it. When I ask the question and people are quick to, I ask them, hey, tell me 3 words that you would use to describe your brand. Some people knock them out really, really quickly. They knock out 3 words straight off the top of their head. And then I ask them the next question, do those 3 words speak to where your brand is today? Or do they speak to where your brand needs to be tomorrow? So, towards the end of today's webinar, I'll be providing you with 3 simple strategies about what great marketing leaders do. At the end of today's webinar, I'll provide you with a 30-minute complimentary online assessment to help you understand if you're playing to the strengths of your brand, the strengths of your team, and the strengths of your organization. Finally, I wanted to share with you a story that a client has allowed me to share. It's a story of frustration. For the last decade, I had a clear direction about where I wanted to go. I had a clear direction about what I wanted to achieve at work and in my personal life. And yet, in the last 24 months, I've been on autopilot. I've been so busy doing what I need to deliver for the rest of the organization, I haven't taken the time to think about what I need and what I need to provide for myself, my own professional development, so I can be the leader the organization needs me to be. People used to reach out to me and they used to talk to me about the next role before it would appear. But now I'm stuck. Something's changed. People aren't approaching me about the next roles. I'm lost in a fog and I'm surrounded by foggy thinking. I wish I could think clearly about what I need to do next, but I'm absolutely so busy in my current role. I'm swamped and I'm out of control. There aren't enough hours in the day, and the more I work, the more I do. The more I do, the more I create work for other people. The more I create work for other people, the more work they expect of me. And so the cycle goes on. I couldn't see a clear way forward. I was confused and frustrated because I was lost in just doing work, and I was struggling to find myself and get out of autopilot mode. What I wanted to see is a clear way forward. What I wanted to see was the tools, techniques, and approaches that takes my thinking to the next level. And somehow I've managed to lose my way. So if that's a frustration that you feel in what you do every day, then you're not alone. You're following the path. The good news is there are ways forward, and I wanted to share a couple of those with you today. One of the really interesting stories I wanted to share with you is about a product manager, and their target market was in hospitality. And what this product manager did was they went and booked time in a particular restaurant that they were targeting, that they knew would be a target organization for them. Now, one of the things they did, they played the role of the mystery shopper. They took copious notes while they were taking in their meal, their booking, what the experience was like from the waiters, what was the light and the music light in the restaurant. But then at the end of the meal, the product manager said, could I speak to the owner? And the waiter brought the owner across and they had a really interesting conversation. And the product manager offered to the restaurant owner to put on an apron for the night and work in a kitchen, and then for another night to trail the maitre d', so that they could really deeply understand what was happening with their customer, the restaurant. Now, as a result of that product manager, she had a totally different understanding of what she needed to put into a product. And I'd say she's doing one of the things that world-class marketers do straight away, being proactive and being very, very focused on what they need to do as a marketing leader, creating more and reacting less. So as I said, at the end of the webinar today, I'm going to provide you with an online assessment to enable you to understand if you're playing to your strengths. So I'm just going to quickly check back to the question panel to see if there's questions that have been asked that might be timed really well right now. So just bear with me for a moment, and I'm just checking the question panel. Okay, so here's a question, and the reason I'm kind of going to anonymize part of it. So thank you for sharing that. You'll know who you are when you hear the summary of the question back. It says, I'm finding dealing with the finance team quite frustrating. Finance is always asking questions either before the board asks them or on behalf of the board. And I feel quite defensive when I get these questions from finance. So Oscar, can you speak to the way you would handle questions when different KPIs are requested and different reports are requested that aren't aligned to organisational KPIs and measures, as well as our marketing KPIs? Okay, so how would you recommend handling the situation? Well, that's a good question. And the question probably highlights part one of the things that great marketing leaders do differently from other marketing leaders, and that is they don't react. So one of the first things I would recommend is when you get a question like that, we call them a random question of the week, answering the question without understanding why that person or that stakeholder group or the board is asking the question is quite meaningless. So it's more important that you ask the question about why they're asking the question. So in this context, the most powerful question you can ask is, think about these kind of approaches. Number one, what decisions will you be making as a result of collecting this information? Or how aligned is this request to the organization's long-term strategy? Or what are you using as a point of comparison? What's the baseline? Is it budget? Is it actual? Is it the market? Is it market share? And how frequently will this report be used? Because at the moment, it feels like it's a random request. So, in asking the questions at a higher level, a few things start to happen as a result. It's more likely you're not going to do random and busy work. It's more likely that you'll have other departments helping or wanting to use the information if the information is at a higher level rather than a really specific detailed kind of report. And it's more likely that you'll have other parts of the organization helping as well. So it's critical to hold your ground here and ask the question. The question highlights then that you're a leader, not a follower. The question also helps them create a space in their mind where they can think a little bit more deeply about their request, because it's pretty likely that they're only reacting to the question themselves. They're just responding to a question either their manager asked them or their manager's manager asked them. And as a leader, you're also protecting your team from what I call busy work, and they probably feel undervalued. Also, it means they feel disconnected from the broader organization. As Peter Drucker says, the difference between managers and leaders is leaders know what to say no to. Managers tend to say yes to everything. And that brings us to the second point about great marketing leaders. They're proactive. So one of the things I want you to do is a little exercise right now, and if you've got a pad and a piece of paper, now's a really good time to take it out. And if not, it's a visual exercise. So what I want to do is I want to audit your calendar. I want to go into your calendar and see the last 90 days and the next 90 days. And I want to be able to color code your calendar. So let's color code all the meetings in your calendar in the last 90 days and in the next 90 days that you have created. And let's go and make those calendar requests green. Let's color code your calendar for the last 90 days and the next 90 days, and let's have a look at the meetings that you've been invited to. and let's code them red. So visualize your calendar, green for the ones you've created, red for the ones that others created. Now, where's the balance? What proportion is red and what proportion is green? If you're like most of the clients I work with, red's dominating. The question is, what proportion should that be in? And we think, based on the work we've done with others and knowing the work of Stephen Covey, that 50-50 is a good balance between proactive and reactive. I wonder what color you would find in your calendar right now. What would dominate? Feel free to put that in the question panel if you want to share that with me, or just keep it to yourself. What we want to do over time is move green, meaning proactive, to 50%, and red's never going to go away. You're always going to have some reactive meetings. Here's the next question. Now let's color code this white. And what I want to do is, how much time is in your calendar right now that I would call think time? Time to reflect, time to synthesize all the multiple initiatives and projects you're working on so that you can balance your time looking forward. So what's the time that sits in there for think time? Now, the great marketing leaders I work with can spend up to a day in a week thinking. They don't do it all in one stretch, but what it does is it sets them up really in a place of clarity for themselves and a place of clarity for their brand. Interesting exercise. If you find that valuable, feel free to share that with your teams and with others that you work with. The next calendar exercise we look at to understand if we're proactive, reactive, or aligned is the alignment view. So let's see how much of your time is aligned with a strategic plan of the organization. Clear alignment, unambiguous alignment. As Stephen Covey says, the key is not to prioritize what's in your schedule. The key is to schedule your priorities. So let's think about total clarity. So let's color code your calendar. We're going to use two different colors now. So we're going to color code black, only the meetings that are 100% aligned with the organization's vision. They're black for the last 90 days and the next 90 days. And then we're going to color code yellow, all those that are off track, not aligned, random. What color do you think I'd find in your calendar the most? Based on work I've done with clients before, when I do this exercise the first time, what we see very clearly is no significant alignment. Less than a third of their time is aligned in their calendar to their organizational priorities and the way that the marketing division can have an impact as a result. It becomes even scarier when I ask the marketers, if we looked at your team's calendars right now, what would that say? So I wanted to share a different story about a marketing leader in an insurance company. And they were frustrated. They'd spent over a year trying to get a business case over the line for a bigger investment in the call center in their organization. And having been unsuccessful, they tried a totally different but proactive approach. They spent 4 months lobbying, engaging their leadership team to spend time in the contact center. And as a result, they got them to spend 3 hours over the next 2 months with their contact center teams, actually in the contact center with headphones on, listening to real live calls with customers, with contact center agents. As a result of this simple proactive exercise that this marketing leader did in bringing the leadership into the contact center to hear real live customer stories, the business case that they've been struggling for 12 months to get funded was funded in the next 90 days. And as a result, they got better technology and better training for their contact center, which had been stumbling around for the last 12 months. That it really quickly helped to show some improvements in their net promoter score or their customer satisfaction score, some increases in their cross-selling ratios, and higher engagement from the staff who actually participate in the contact center because they realized that their leadership team was actually paying attention there as well. So, proactive versus reactive. Let's understand what's in our calendar, because time is our most precious resource. Imagine if all you could do was get a 10% improvement in the alignment of your team and your organization every month. Imagine if you could get that improvement in working with your agencies. If you looked at your agency's calendars, what would they tell you? Finally, great marketing leaders benchmark and compare themselves with external marketplace, not budgets, not forecasts, not internal comparison points. So just do a quick test. List the strategic goals of your organization. How many of them are external in their measures, and how often are they actually measured? And are people compensated on that? I promise you this is the last calendar exercise, but it'd be really interesting to do is have a look at your calendar and see how much time you actually spent visiting competitors, visiting customers, listening in the contact centers, being on the website and understanding the actual path of users on your website, go and visiting some stores, speaking to resellers, speaking to distributors. Just be systematic in your listening and how regularly you're doing that as well. I remember working with one marketing leader. They worked in a technology organization, and they had a very big focus with a chief information officer and their data centers where all their technology was stored. And what they did, not only with their marketing organization, but also their agencies, they visited 11 customer data centers. They did that over 90 days, and they conducted over 200 interviews with people who worked in those data centers to understand a day in the life of that data center. Now you can imagine with that much insight how powerful a marketers they can be. So great marketing leaders aren't the ones who understand their customers. Great marketing leaders are the ones who anticipate what their customers need, because they understand what the customer can't explain, and they build amazing products and services before an organization or a group of customers even think they need it. The best example of that is the famous Apple iPod. Towards the end of the webinar today, I'm going to provide you with some really simple 30-minute online assessment tool to help you understand how you're playing to your strengths. So let's look at the second thing that great marketing leaders do differently from others. The second thing they do is they invest in themselves. And I just wanted to highlight a quick overview of the 9-step process in my Marketing Leaders Mentoring program. And as you navigate across here, you can see it's a really, really rich and powerful set of tools to look at both internal, external, proactive, reactive, short-term and long-term. And if you're keen to learn more about that, we can speak later on. So when you think of Bono from U2, or you think of Steve Jobs, or you think of Naomi Simpson, all great brand leaders. Bono, you can always picture him in his sunglasses. Steve Jobs, you can always see him in a black turtleneck sweater, and you can always see him in blue jeans. And Naomi Simpson, always immaculately dressed and always wearing something that's red. In all cases, their brands are really, really consistent. Their brands are relevant, and their brand positioning is not only about the present, but it's also about the future. Their brands are congruent with the organization, and their brands speak well about them. You couldn't imagine them working or saying anything different because they're really consistent as brand leaders. As marketing leaders, it's ironic that we spend so much time on our organization brand, and yet we don't spend exactly any time developing our own personal brand. And yet your brand walks in the room before you do. Your brand, it's like the wind. You can feel its impact without even seeing it. Your brand is the 3 words that other people use to describe you, rather than the 3 words you use to describe yourself. So here's a simple exercise to do right now. Write down 3 words that you would use to describe your brand. Pretty simple exercise. 3 words that describe you. Now, the real question isn't what are those 3 words. The real question is, do those 3 words position my past, my present, or my future? Because branding is all about positioning you for the future. So let's do the same exercise again and pick the 3 words you want to other people to be saying about your brand in the future. I'm sure those words are really, really different. If you want to try this exercise really differently, and some people will do it while they're on the webinar, I call those the advanced students or the multitaskers, and some of you might want to do it after the webinar. But simply take out your mobile phone, send a text message to 50 people you worked with or are working with in the past or in the present, and just send them a really simple text message. And the message would say, I'm doing a professional development program, and could you please send me 3 words you think of when you think of me? So I'm doing a professional development program, and I need you to send me 3 words you think of when you think of me. It's definitely a fun exercise. It's quite enlightening. And ultimately, as brand leaders, you need your brand to be positioned in the future, not in the past. Your brand positioning as a marketing leader needs to be more commercial, more external, more proactive, and more about the future. With this clarity in place, you can then work on the brand that is your organization. But until then, it's really, really difficult to position and market your organization brand when you don't know what your personal brand stands for. It's the ultimate in marketing irony. Marketers spend all their time consumed creating, developing their organizational brands, but they've forgotten to position their own. At the end of today's webinar, I'll provide you with a 30-minute online assessment to help you understand a couple of those strengths. This is an overview of one of the modules inside my marketing mentoring program. Its purpose is to amplify your impact and sits under the 9-step model that I spoke about earlier on. And finally, great marketing leaders really understand their strengths incredibly well. A strength is an ability to consistently provide near perfect performance. Talents are recurring patterns, but strengths are tools based on practice and developing skills. Strengths are powerful tools from our past and for our future. Yet, a strength overplayed can be a weakness. Overplaying your strengths highlights a lack of flexibility, an inability in the foundations of your past to create a successful future as a result of rigidity, always playing to the strengths the same way. So strength overplayed can actually be a weakness. And the best way to think about this is when faced with a storm, a tree that doesn't bend just becomes wood. And again, if we keep playing to our strengths in our same way, we won't be the powerful leaders that we can be. Often we're our best critics. We focus too much time on our weaknesses, and for some of us, we think we could write a book or even a movie about how many weaknesses we have. As interesting weaknesses are, we need to be conscious of what our weaknesses are. But we don't have to spend time dwelling on them. Me, I'm dyslexic with numbers, and as a result, I need to deliberately partner with a finance function in my work and my financial planner in my personal life. I'm explicit about my dyslexia with numbers, and yet I've learned that people are really, really generous. They're really generous to help out when you declare a weakness. Along the way, I know I've improved my understanding of finance by saying it's a weakness, but I still transpose numbers when I write down telephone numbers off the phone. It's during adversity when our strengths are tested. When we're faced with difficult situations, we automatically revert to our toolbox of well-rehearsed moves and pick the strength in a really, really mechanical way, an existing maneuver almost. Unfortunately, our approach as a result comes out of reaction and not creation, and we're playing to the past rather than the present situation. Great marketing leaders are situational, and they apply the strength that is required in that situation rather than the reflex action of their strength. So, great marketing leaders who have breakthrough performance are really deliberate about their strengths on multiple dimensions. They play to the strengths themselves, they play to the strengths of their teams, they play to the strength of their agency, and they play to the strength of their brand positioning. I wonder what strengths you're playing to right now. So, as I said at the end of the webinar, there's 3 things that great marketing leaders do differently and consistently. Great marketing leaders create more and react less. Great marketing leaders understand what their brands stand for and are aligned personally and professionally. They're congruent, it's energizing, they're deliberate. Great marketing leaders play to their strengths and the strengths of others. In my work with great marketing leaders, I've found that great marketing leaders are learners and they're focused first on learning about themselves. So, if you'd like to understand more about yourself, you'd like to understand more about your strengths, I'm happy to provide you with complimentary 18-page assessment report, including an action plan and including a 30-minute telephone debrief as well. All you need to do is simply send me an email at this email address, oscar@oscartrimboli.com, and in the subject line just say, I would like a strengths assessment. It's been my honor to spend a small part of your Wednesday with you, and thank you for sharing your valuable time. I wish you the best, and I hope that you can become the world-class marketer that you deserve to be. Thank you. And for those who want to stay on and ask a few questions, feel free to do so. I'll be waiting on for the next 5 minutes. Thank you very much.